Hi, I'm with Justin Smith, the Superintendent of Evesham Township Schools, and I just wanted him to introduce himself.
Yeah, thanks, Max. Like you said, Justin Smith, Superintendent of Schools in Evesham Township, which is actually not too far away, about 5 miles or so from here. I actually grew up down the street from this new location for the South Jersey Innovation Center, so I know that this is a great location for a great center, and look forward to seeing what comes out of all the great work here.
All right, so we're going to start with some questions for Mr. Smith. So, question one is, what inspired you to pursue a career in education, and specifically to become the superintendent of public schools?
Yeah, well, that question actually makes me think back a bit into the foggy years of the past when I was much younger. So my first probable sort of seed that got planted for wanting to go into education was when I was an undergrad in college. I volunteered in an elementary school, really liked that. And then when I went to grad school, had a teaching fellowship, and I found that actually my favorite part of grad school was teaching undergraduates. It wasn't even my own coursework and research, and that kind of led me to wanting to kind of get more teaching experience and move away from sort of the research side of education and more towards the practical, just classroom experience. And really that came out of just feeling like it was making a difference. Just working with young people, helping them learn and seeing the kind of the joy and the sense of accomplishment that came along with that. Superintendent was definitely not on my mind and during those early years, but as I moved on through education and taught for a while locally here at Cherokee High School, I began to think about possibly going into administration, just really as another way to make a difference, and became building administrator at Cherokee, and then kept kind of like moving up into different experiences that ultimately led me to be superintendent. And the superintendent role was, I guess it was less about like a certain position or title, and it was really always about trying to find a way to make the biggest difference I could.
That's great, thank you. Could you describe your leadership philosophy and style, and how do you motivate and inspire your team and the community to achieve common goals?
Yeah, well, sure. So leadership style, philosophy, I guess it kind of comes out of a couple different components, but I think leadership is based on listening. The best ideas come from all of us and out of the community. So, I think one of my main jobs is really to listen and try to absorb what, not only the ideas that people have, but sort of what their experiences are, and take that data of being with people, different types of stakeholders, that's students, staff, families, community members, and trying to make a kind of synergistic sense of those sort of parts in order to come up with a plan that's going to best serve each of those groups and everyone together as a whole. And to do that means involving people who can contribute and helping them feel like their voices matter, because we really do, like the tasks that lie before any school district are complex enough that it really does take everybody's voice and everybody's mind contributing. And then as far as sort of motivating and inspiring, I guess, I just think it is. I think actually being listened to and sort of getting genuine attention from someone can be motivational, right? So, people, when they're able to see sort of the fingerprints of their ideas show up on the work of a larger organization, that's pretty motivating. And keeping the mission in mind throughout that process, like the mission of any school district, understandably, is to marshal all the resources that we have to be able to support kids in the best way we can, right? So keeping that and that mission, that North Star, right? So that's we have to have that in front of us all the time, and even times when like we might get caught up in sort of like the I guess you call like the details, the minutia. We can't lose sight of why we do what we do. So everything really needs to be able to lead back. Every question, every decision needs to be able to lead back to that overarching mission, and that keeping that in mind gives everybody a common vision ultimately.
Wonderful, thank you. So what are your thoughts on chess related to school activities?
Chess related to school activities. Well, it's many, all right, but I'll just say, so I do think chess is a great, just take it at its literal meaning there with that question, that chess makes for a great school activity, period, full stop. So, meaning like we're working this year in our school district to offer basically like an Evesham chess club in partnership with the South Jersey Innovation Center. Really excited about that. So on a literal level, I think chess just makes for a good activity that kids can have an opportunity for in school. But then beyond that, more on a sort of intellectual level, chess, it's sort of like a practical, contextualized application opportunity for cognitive skills that kids might learn in more sort of abstract or decontextualized academic subjects. So, basically like, the sort of the logical sequential thinking of math, we strive for math in context, but it might not always have as palpable and concrete a context as chess can provide. In chess, you're applying some of the same skills, but it's for a real life, very like visceral context, which is you're sitting across from someone, there's a board in between both of you, and you're trying to win the chess match, right? So, which is cool because it is like learning that is going to benefit academic endeavor, but it really feels like game or play, ultimately.
That's great. So again, as superintendent, what are your thoughts on the increase of interest in chess in kids?
Yeah, well, that's a good dovetail question there. So I would say basically, the increase in chess means an increase in interest in thinking skills, in sort of what I would call long-term strategic thinking. So understanding that the decisions we're making right now, the move I'm making right now, has the ability to, that it could play have an effect 10 moves from now, 5 moves from now, being able to think about the forest and the trees, each piece being, a tree, but the board itself and the whole game being the forest. So I might, it might be tempting to make a move because I think it's going to get me something right now, but is that actually really going to be effective for the longer term strategy of where the board is? So those sorts of called windfalls of chess can carry over into how kids approach life, or how anyone, adults, anybody, understanding that the work we put in now may not pay a dividend right at the end of the day. It might show up over time, it might show up in the grades we earn on our report card at the end of a marking period. It might ultimately show up in the scores we achieve on the SAT or in Math League, or longer term undertakings that can only be reached as fully as they can be through systemic daily investment of time and energy. And I think chess really fosters that.
All right, thank you. I mean, that's a great analogy you brought up with the forest and the trees. So moving away from chess and more towards back to your role as superintendent, we want to ask, what do you believe are the most essential qualities and skills for a superintendent? And then how do you embody these qualities in your professional practice?
That's good. I like that we were kind of going back between chess and education and leadership. So Well, I think I mentioned before about the listening, and I don't want to go back over that ground, but I'll add another quality which I think is really important, which is I'm going to say, well, this is at least for me, right? So a being us, not we. So maybe a sense of humility, but also an emphasis on team. You know, the the um, the knowledge that for all that we think we know, like at least this is proven true for me. Like I feel like I know less as I get older, in a sense. That and that reminds me back to Socrates, which that you know he was considered wise because he said he didn't know, and I think I've grasped that in different ways as I've aged, but you know, understanding that the work that is to be done, the types of situations, each person that we serve, each student is a complex universe unto themselves, right? And to figure out what's going to help a child connect with learning, feel better about themselves socially and emotionally, that needs an absolute team effort. And we have staff throughout our district who bring their insights, their education, their experience to be able to support the students. And it's together through that teamwork that we're able to try to be like almost like fingers interlocked, lifting that student up ultimately.
Yeah, great response. So another thing about I guess students in education, how do you think STEM will affect the future of students in public schools? And should parents and educators put in higher emphasis on teaching STEM in the future?
Yeah, well, I think as you were talking about that question in STEM, I started to have a image in my mind of when I was going on college tours with my kids, which wasn't too long ago, and it seemed like every campus we went to, you know, if you saw new ground being broken or new construction, you almost didn't have to ask. You knew it was a building that related to STEM education. So I definitely see, in higher education, and I think that's been proven out in the data, right? As more and more students in higher ed are going into STEM-related careers, and enrollment in humanities-related careers is dropping, which I think is reflective of kind of twofold. One, what the market is asking for, right? The demand for workers who have a professional background, professional training in STEM-related fields, and also that people are looking for more of a return on their investment of the tuition, of the time that it takes to get a degree, a college degree, right? So, and what'll happen is that'll trickle back down into K-12 world, right? You know what happens in higher ed and then backwards design. If high schools are designed to help prepare kids for college, and colleges are emphasizing STEM, then high schools in turn will shift and add more focus to STEM preparation, you know, to get their kids ready to succeed in college. And then again, backwards design, trickle down, middle schools will shift to prepare their kids to succeed in high school. And so it goes. So these are all really good trends. I feel like, it is super important, of course, for that vertical articulation from K-12 to college to be able to prepare kids to succeed when they go on beyond, that vertical articulation. Really, the trajectory of that it extrapolates out into the workforce, right? So ultimately, the ultimate proof of the success of a school district is, are those students going on and are they achieving their goals as adults? We don't get that sonar ping back from them often, or if we do, it might be 10, 15 years after they've graduated, but ultimately, right, that's the proof. So I know, like, we did something at the beginning of the school year this year where we had graduates record little video clips talking about like teachers that made a difference for them, and played it for our staff on opening day. And I just remember one that was a student who graduated a few years ago, and she's now in med school, and she was talking about a science teacher who made an impact for her and really like was so patient and dedicated to answering her questions and making the class lessons so engaging that it sparked her interest in a way that she's still trying to satiate in learning about the field of medicine. So that ultimately, it's no matter what we do as a district to put financial resources towards supporting STEM. We can have the greatest laboratories, but ultimately the most important factor is always going to be the human factor, and coming back to the staff who are in those learning spaces, and that they're taking the time to connect with their students and learn alongside them and with them throughout the year, helping them journey forward. That's so it's like that's the I'll call it paradox, because paradox means something that kind of has a surprisingness to it. It's more like the logic of that we ultimately, in order to be as successful as we want to be in STEM, we're still also going to need the humanities as well, because that is the human element, right? The appreciation, the ability to to listen to someone else and put someone else's interests ahead of your own. That's which is at the heart of teaching, is just as essential for success in fostering STEM as anything.
All right. So I think just building off of that, something maybe you could go more in depth in is just, I know you answered part of it, was what are your thoughts on the increase of interest in STEM across the student body, maybe more particularly the younger student body, the elementary or middle school, and then what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, I think a couple cool things which you can even see here in the Innovation Center as ways to spark interest, which you're seeing more. You see more and more in schools, but like robotics, or but connecting, like meeting kids where they're at. So like the Lego robotics, for example, right, is a great illustration of that. Making the learning of science at any age be more hands-on and in context. So maybe that means we're finding ways to give kids little lab experiences in their classrooms at different grades, and I would say too, like when it comes to STEM, I'll just slip in there like an A for STEAM too, because I do think that the arts can be another way to connect young kids with STEM, like the gateway, for that young child, the gateway into the wider sort of fields of STEM might actually be the arts, and the drawing on paper becomes digital design, ultimately, or tracing a leaf on a page can lead to an interest in botany. So that's I think it's all very, but ultimately the most important thing, it's very, very, very exciting.
Yeah, thank you. I think that the point of art being the gateway into STEM is a really important point, and we would like to just thank you for your time, and we look forward to what you do in Evesham Township schools in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Max.
Yeah.